Okay, it's Bernadette again here. And so the next area I want to talk to you about is the groundwork. What you need to do, you actually need to do this before you even start thinking about buying a property, but you certainly need to do it before you start seeking funding, because this is part of the risk management strategy. It's about really knowing what you're doing. So, so you need to research your area. You need to limit your area, because to know the area well and to keep your finger on the pulse, you can't spread yourself too thin. So if you research an area, find out whether it's viable for renovating. And there's four main things you'll need to look at. You'll need to look at the people, you'll need to look at the geography and the infrastructure, the facilities, and also the laws that affect living and renovating in that particular area or suburb. So regarding the people, research the demographic to get a really good understanding of who lives there, what their habits are, what their spending habits are, what their lifestyle requirements are, and what brings them to the area, and what sort of properties the majority of people looking to buy properties, what sort of properties they're looking for, and whether that's a product that you can actually produce. So knowing your target market will really help you understand the supply and demand for the area, and also understand what renovation you'll need to do to meet their needs. The next area, the geography, you need to know the proximity to water, elevation, which is another word for hills, infrastructure, roads, rail, anything that will affect living and obviously property values in that area, and also your actual renovation process, if there's going to be anything, because if it's going to affect how you're operating, it may affect the value, and it may affect your costs. The other thing to be aware of is any upcoming changes. Obviously, your legal representative will certainly be requesting this information, and depending on where you live, often the vendor is legally obliged to provide this information to you. But it's important to actually know yourself and have a really good understanding of the area. For example, our particular suburb, there are plans to put an extra railway line through the suburb to take freight. And even though it hasn't been built yet, it has significantly affected property prices that are near the railway line. So it wouldn't be great if you were to purchase property and then find that there was something significant like that going to happen that would affect your buying property in the area. You also need to look at the facilities and the things that will bring people to the area and have them stay, things like the shopping, the schools, if there's any schools that attract particular demographic, hospitals, general services for your demographic. And the last thing is the laws that affect living in that area, and also that affect your activity as a renovator, and could affect your costs and could affect your sale price and whether you're actually able to do what you want to do. Things like planning laws, heritage laws, services, water, sewerage, electricity, environmental laws, the list goes on and on. So, so you need to understand that, so that you're going into this with your eyes wide open. You're able to present a really clear picture when you write a funding proposal. Okay, so once you've got that understanding and you move to the stage where actually looking at properties, there's a rigorous due diligence process that you need to complete on the property. This is a very light overview, But just to give you an idea, so obviously you appoint a legal representative to represent you and to also protect your interests, and that person will obviously perform some of the due diligence from a legal point of view. But some of the things that you would include would be a survey, check the services to the property, and obviously your legal person would do a title search and make sure that there are no encumbrances on the title, and things like checking that any building work has been, the vendors have sought approval for the work, it's approved work and not illegal. Get a building and pest inspection done. I actually don't put too much weight on certainly the building inspection. Like they're looking for major structural things, but you still do need to perform your own inspection and to follow up on anything that's going to cost you money, so that you go into it with a full understanding of what you're up for. You might also get a valuation, an independent valuation, and then you will work through your project plan for your renovation and perform a feasibility analysis. Now, at this point, I would say if you are planning to put an offer in on a property, you must always make it subject to finance and also subject to your due diligence if you haven't completed it satisfactorily. Certainly in some areas you do have a cooling off period, unless of course you buy at auction. In Australia, if you buy at auction, generally the conditions are no cooling off, but it's really important to protect yourself and make sure you're better off missing out on the deal than taking unnecessary risks. Okay, so there's some of the things that you need to do to in preparation for approaching a lender. Now I'm going to move straight into the next topic, which is basically improving how you look on paper. When you go to put in a funding proposal, the first thing, well, may not be the first thing, but one of the things that the lending bodies do is they'll check your credit rating, and they're checking for how good you are at paying, whether you pay your bills on time, and what your level of debt is. And to do that, they go to an external company and seek your credit history. Now, it's a really good idea to get in and check that credit history for yourself before that happens, because you don't want your funding application falling over because of something that comes up in that could have been avoided. It could be something really simple, like telephone companies are really hot on this, and they will put in a report if there's been something a bit amiss in your history. So I would, most times it's perfect, but you need to know if there's anything you need to try and sort out. You want to know it before you get to a bank with a funding proposal for a property that you're really wanting to get. And in Australia, these companies are obliged to provide your credit record free of charge. The only time you would need to pay for it would be if you wanted your request expedited, if you wanted it really quickly. But get it up front and know what you're in for is basically what I would suggest. Now, the other thing with applying for, or credit in general, is that credit card accounts that haven't been paid on time in the previous 6 months, again this is in Australia, can impact your likelihood of having a loan approved. So if your credit card has not been paid on time in the 6 months prior to putting in that application, so that's another thing that you need to make sure is absolutely squeaky clean. When calculating equity, lenders factor in credit cards exponentially. Some of them reduce your borrowing power by $5,000 for every $1,000 limit on the card, regardless of whether it's utilised or not. So if you want to maximise your ability to borrowing power, you need to think about shutting down any unnecessary credit cards, and this can help to your ability to access funding. Okay, and the third thing in making yourself look good on paper is free up as much cash as you can. Now, prepare a detailed personal budget and look for fat to trim in the budget. Are there things that are in there that you can do without, both lump sum and ongoing expenses? Look for the low-hanging fruit. Look for things that have got a lot of money tied up in them. You know, you might have a boat sitting out in the yard that's not doing anything. So, and sell it and get the money into the bank, so that can certainly get you on your road to freedom. And quit any unnecessary expenses like subscriptions. You know, I don't know if you are a coffee fiend, you might want to cut back a coffee a day. Like, little bit here and a little bit there adds up and makes a big difference. And if you think this is, you know, sounding all too much like hard work, I just wanted to put it into a bit of perspective. And this is a quote from Muhammad Ali. And like, I think suffer is a poor choice of words, but what he says is suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. And that's really what it's about, putting a bit of effort in now so that you do have that financial freedom and security when you need it in the future. Okay, so I'm just going to stop there and ask some questions.